Keeping current with Kansas City with me, Daniel Sperry, KC Star. This is Thad Bell from the KC Soccer Journal. I don't know why I went in reverse order than I normally do, but I did. Mr. Sperry, how are you today?
I'm doing well, Thad. How about yourself?
Not bad, not bad. I'm actually had a little time to do some other stuff today for a change.
Wow.
I know it's not often lately.
Not often lately. We're in the stretch run, baby.
I mean, I did have to get on a open cut presser, but that's that other team. So that
Yeah,
was
you didn't ask any questions in there.
no, it was kind of funny listening to the other coach be a little bit pissy though.
I think you know what's really funny about the whole thing. Sorry, we're talking about this, but it was I don't know if you stayed on all the way for Eric Tommy, but the question was posed to
Yes.
a player for Sporting, and the guy said, "I have a quick two-parter for you," as in a quick two-part question, which two-part questions are never quick, for one, and two, neither part had anything to do with each other, and the second part also included like seven little questions in there to like try and lead him to the answer, and it was just like I died out laughing. I texted a few other people that I knew were on the call, and they were also dying laughing at the moment. So, yeah, something else. Anyways, um, it's okay. I confused Vlaco with a question on after the win against the Spirit. So, um,
It happens to
it
all of us, man.
happens.
It does. It really
It
does. I
does.
mean, uh, I try to make sure it's clear and concise, and sometimes it just really badly fails. So,
Mhm.
but
Sadly.
yeah, it's some of us in the media world do really need to learn to focus on getting a question and then another question if it needs it.
Hmm.
But we all learn. In that vein, the current seem to be learning how to be very successful again with what, three straight shutouts? It's pretty dang good.
Uh, yeah, this team is not allowed a goal in 270 minutes of play, folks. That's pretty darn good.
A 3-0 win over the Spirit.
Hmm.
Another playoff, high level playoff team that they just not. I'm not gonna say they got revenge on, but they got the little bit of payback for the 4-1 loss
Yeah,
at Washington. So, and yes, I said Washington. Um, at the Spirit. So anyway, good game, man. Pretty, like scoring right off the bat with Nichelle Prince.
yeah.
And from then on, it was mostly the current taking charge.
Taking charge in a different way. I think that was the
Yes.
biggest thing. And like I wrote about this in the game in the gamer. Like they had 41% possession in the game. They only had three shots on target. In total, they were outshot. It looks like where is this stat? It was right in front of me. They were so on target. Washington had four shots on target. The Current had three. Total shots attempted 14 for Washington, only eight for the Current. The Current also had, like I said, f only 41% possession. But the Current won the expected goals battle over the match. So their three chances, their three goals that they scored, amounted to a good 1.1 xG, and the Washington for all of their work with the ball and their more shots taken only amounted to about zero point 0.5 per Opta. This is taking charge in this was more about taking control.
Right.
They had complete control over how the match was played. It was played on the terms that they wanted, both with the ball and without the ball, and they executed those terms. It's like they laid out the terms and conditions and then like actually enforce them all the way through the match. They're like, this is how we're going to play. This is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to allow you to do. And like Washington, like click check the box, e-signatured their name on the terms and conditions and said, okay, we'll play by those rules. And that's what happened. I mean, it really just was one of those games where like they had control in all the right ways. It partially helped that they did get that early goal, I think. But it didn't matter. Washington was still had the ball. They were still pushing. They were still trying to get stuff to happen, and the Current were sniffing it out for the most part.
Yeah, and that's pretty much why I led with that taking control because I wanted to see how you would respond to that. Because if you looked at certain amount of stats, you'd say, "Oh, Spirit were a better team." Because I mean, I often, if you just look at stats, you can kind of like suss out how the game went. But the real result there was with the XG was zero point 0.5 to 1.1.
Hmm.
Even with less opportunities, the Current had much better XG, even though they outperformed that XG considerably. But it
Hmm.
just proved that they had the better opportunities, and Spirit, with a lot of opportunities, didn't have great chances. And Almuth, I think, was tested really seriously once, maybe. I don't remember
Yeah,
now.
yeah, there's one good save that you had to make. And
Yeah.
really, I think the one of the high, like there were some high XG, sure. I think one of them didn't go on target, which would have been the kind of breakaway that Trinity Rodman had towards the end of the first half. But Alma's biggest save was on that free kick. It wasn't terribly threatening, but it was placed really well, and she had to get there, otherwise it was going to sneak in. One of those that you expect the goalkeeper. We talked about this the last 2 weeks. You expect her to make the save. She made the save, and that was of good quality. So, yeah, I think I was trying to see if I could find it in the stat sheet about the location. Oh, here we go. These shots. So I'm gonna have to go back and do a little bit of math here, some quick maths, while Thad rants about something. But it just shows. I mean, right off the bat, I'm looking at here is the in the second half, every single shot from the Washington Spirit, 36 yards in distance, Trinity Rodman in the 54th. 27 yards in distance, Trinity Rodman in the 58th. Trinity Rodman again in the 61st minute from 29 yards out. And then late 73rd minute, Trinity Rodman, 15-yard shot, and Tara McCown, a 30-yard shot late there. So basically, from in the entire second half, the Washington Spirit had one shot that they attempted within the 18-yard box. And they probably have more shots attempted that are longer than 25 yards out on goal than they did that are inside the 18-yard box. That is a winning recipe defensively.
And the XG, I think, from if I'm looking at this correctly, they only had 0.13 XG in the second half with all those
Correct.
opportunities.
Correct.
If you can limit a team to doing that, you are in control. Whether or not they outshot you, whether or not they had outpossessed you, whether or not they outpassed you, that's when you have control of the game in that regard. It's not always a pretty game, but in this case, it was still a pretty game.
Yeah.
Um, and it's also pretty obvious that Trinity Rodman was the only person that was really being super creative there, but
Well, I'll say this too. Their injuries have hurt them.
it
I think it
has.
was really clear on the break, like the difference that Croy Bethune, watching them throughout the year, the difference that Croy Bethune and uh,
Sar,
Sar make are is very, very high. Lacey Santos, solid player. Ashley Hatch, solid player.
yes.
Rosemond Kouassi, Andy Solo. I mean, there's good players in there.
They have a lot of good players.
They have a lot of very, very good players, but they are missing. Like there's a couple that they have that can just absolutely unlock anything and everything. And it goes, it's the same thing with the current too.
Right.
You know, take out Temwa. Okay. I mean, like take out Low out of the midfield. You're looking at a very, very different and a very,
I think
like
you
it
make
changes the best way
I
that
think
they
you
can
make that
play.
comparison to earlier in the season when they were missing Di Bernardo, Bia, Dabinia,
Yeah.
and you're essentially relying on Timwa to do certain things, which he did. But I mean, they were kind of relying on Timwa to get goals,
Yeah,
and because nobody else was really the goal scorers at that point.
for sure. And so we'll take, I certainly think take that with a grain of salt. Um, but, uh, it's one of those things of they just, like I said, you look at the shot distances, you look at the way that they managed the current, kept the game in front of them almost at all times. I got it calculated real quick. The average distance of shot for the Washington Spirit was 22, and it was essentially 22.6 yards, rounded up by the nearest tenth. So there you go.
Impressive. You did math while talking.
I did calculator while talking.
It's still math, but
It's math.
all right.
Anyways.
One of the differences has been Nichelle Prince starting at the center forward spot.
Mhm.
Previously, she'd started at wing, and we've kind of said we didn't feel that she was very effective there. Center forward spot, she's been, I would say, quite a bit more effective and earned her first goal for the current. What have you? I know I don't remember who asked the question. Maybe it was you. I'd like to give credit, but I don't remember. But Vlaco talked about Nichelle being there because um, he saw her in with Canada and liked what he saw from her playing in that spot. So he moved her there to check that out.
Yeah, that was your colleague Chad Smith at the Kansas City Soccer Journal who did ask that question.
You're right.
But yeah, I also I'll say this. We mentioned this on the pod too. I do vaguely remember saying in one of my rants at some point about like when Nichelle comes back, if Bia is gone, how do they want to use her? Because I like what I saw from her again. So we
Yep.
said that Vlaco, I'm glad you listened to us. I'm just kidding. But it's one of those things of like, I mean, this happens all the time at the club and the country level. You see a player play somewhere else and they're like, oh, okay, well, that's kind of interesting. How can we have that happen? And it worked out that the current needs somebody to play in that spot because really Temwa is at her best when she's not running at two central defenders, but can run off the shoulder of of somebody that's occupied by somebody else, and it gets her into those spaces that she excels so well in. But Nichelle, I thought the biggest difference for me in the game with her playing as the striker was how withdrawn she was able to play from the back line because she is a winger, and I think for the first couple games her tendency was to like try and play off the shoulder and get in behind and do those Temwa type of things, and in reality she's very good with the ball at her feet. And if she can drop in deep and help move that and shuttle that play in the way that Bia does so well, I think it finds another home for her within the offense, and that's good that you can have such high quality players be such a versatile part of, what you plug players into.
Another question that went to Vlaco during the post game presser, and again, I don't remember who said this. So I apologize. It's not me trying to be obtuse. It's just sometimes it was hard to hear in there, so I'm more hearing his answers than I am the questions. But and it's also I'm just forgetful. But asked about is this the way you want to play now? Essentially, this was you've got good results kind of playing in this style. And his I knew exactly what his answer was going to be with slightly different words probably, but it's not where we're going to be. It's that this is the way we played to beat this team on this day.
Hmm.
And with having Nichelle be there, and this is where I was going with that, having different players in different spots, and because now you're going to get Claire Hutton back, and you're going to have more options in the midfield again, and he has all these options now with people healthy and getting healthy. Bia, we'll probably talk about her a little bit, but getting healthier, he has a lot more options in how he can face a different team at a different day, which with what weapons they have, and then neutralize them and then counterattack them, or take whether it's take control or sit back and control it in a different way. I think that's just the where this team's at right now is the positive. Got to keep seeing it happening. Of course, that's the coaching aspect of it.
Yeah, that was a question from yours truly, actually. Um, so yeah, I think I understand what his comment was too, right? Like, of course you want to win a game 5-0 and be the possession team. You want to do all those things, but
Right.
like you said, like, okay, that's what Washington really, really wants to do. And if there's also considering the absences and personnel that they were going to have, it made sense to try and limit them to things that, like to allow them to have the ball, but limit them in what they wanted to do. And it's just like a clinical approach defensively in the not only in just the tactics and the setup of it, but like we saw again, right? Like Haley was out with Haley was at right back, and she was on Trinity Rodman the whole night. and Ellie Wheeler, Trinity was playing off the left, and they had Haley matched up against Trinity in that aspect in that setup, and so I just think that like what they've done, you know, in matching up the player abilities and the what they excel at to kind of compile this back line into where it's at now. It does help with the rise of Ellie Wheeler, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Um, she really had the left side of the field locked down. And Trinity Rodman is one of those that you just do whatever you can to contain as much as possible. And I thought they contained her as much as possible. Like she's still going to get her chances. And so I think they handled that whole situation so well. And it's just one of those of like when you're in the playoffs, you just have to make sure that you don't get killed. Like you can't get yourself so wide open that a team is waiting for it to pounce and counterattack you. And on the flip side, you have to continually get the ball in the right spots and get rid of it in the right spots to make sure you don't open yourself up to counter pressing or to kind of make sure that you're not getting totally shifted out of shape in possession, because that's what Washington was trying to do. They're trying to pull everyone in and out of shape, and I thought that the current press actually picked the right moments to press. They had the right triggers in the game,
Yep.
so they pressed when they needed to, but they didn't press a ton, and they just said, "Here, try and break us down," and they didn't, and
And
it worked.
while you were talking, I was kind of thinking about this again a little bit differently, but because we've highlighted over the last few pods about how well Almuth has played now these last few games, about how we used to think Haley Mace wasn't a good outside back in a four back system,
Hmm.
and the contributions with Kayla Sharples, Alana Cook, how Ellie Wheeler's come along, and all these different factors, and I'm kind of like just I'm putting it together in a different mentally way to say this is that I know we've talked to players before, and you can watch how when you are uncertain what the player next to you is going to do, be, or accomplish, you now have your focus in different directions sometimes, and that messes you
Hmm.
up. And now with the confidence of Schultz and the center backs, it lets the outside backs be even more focused on defending. It lets your
Hmm.
uh it lets your D mids be more focused on how they do things. Everybody doing the pieces that they need to do. They've been really good at it a lot of this year, but as they get a little more consistency and confidence in everybody doing it,
Hmm.
without calling out names, um, I think that just is going to make them has made them better and is going to make them even better. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, I think we've talked around it. We've said it in 27 different ways. I'm just trying to cut it down to a little more concise of how to look at
Yeah.
it is the confidence of having the people next to you doing their job correctly lets you be
Hmm.
better at your job.
Correct.
I know I told you after the game I was going to half jokingly say I know why Nichelle Prince was moved to center forward,
Okay.
and it was because again it's just a joke, half joking, is that way she's closer to the goal so that Timwa can catch up to her coming from the wing, and that way that's the only way that you can have two people arrive at goal at the same time is to give everybody else a little bit of a head start.
Especially with Temwa.
Yeah,
According to FIFA, though, she has like 82 pace, and is not in the top 10 fastest players in the National Women's Soccer League. So, congrats EA FC for being stupid at your job again. Um,
they are not known for being 100% accurate.
no, they're not.
They are known for making a pretty decent game. So
Sure. As
when
an avid player, sure.
when uh when you were looking for accuracy or more so on the men's side, it would be Football Manager, but that's not the fun game experience. So
For some.
yeah. Although I wonder if the has Football Manager started to put the women in yet? I don't think so.
That's a great question because I don't play Football Manager, so you have to ask someone who does play it.
I've started it a couple times. It was just like way more time than I had to invest. I would rather spend the time actually on the real side of it instead of the game
Yeah,
side of
for
it.
sure.
But it didn't at that time, so maybe maybe when they do, we'll have a little more accuracy.
for sure.
All right. Anything else we want to discuss about this last game? Trinity getting hurt, the back
Yeah,
spasms, I assume.
yeah, incredibly, um, incredibly like tough to watch.
Yeah.
Like a player that is as phenomenal as she is, to go off like that. I will say this. I'm thankful it's just serious back spasms and like hopefully like it's not like a serious long term uh is it someone was like, well, was it her kidney? Like did was this like an internal organ? And like is there something worse going on here? And I was like, no, I think it's probably just like some back issues, but
Yeah. She's been known
um
to have back spasms
and
before.
yes, and she's had them a couple of times. So it's just one of those of like, I am thankful it is not much worse, but to see her carried off in a on a wheelchair in the way that she was pretty shocking. Good on Nate Herron, the public address announcer, and the crowd for giving a hand and standing up and kind of acknowledging her as she was kind of being wheeled to the bench. There was a lot of fans that were giving her a standing ovation and applause. Obviously there's a significant amount of women's national team crossover between the current fans.
Yeah.
And I think people, this is an educated soccer city. People know who the other team is, who is on the other team, know who's a big deal, and they're going to, be very respectful and give that plaudits where it's due there. So,
The another thing I noticed while it was happening was as she was being wheeled over, and she was obviously in pain, and at one point she had towel over her face. I don't know if she was hiding her face or
mhm,
or whatever, but um, Vlaco walked over, and obviously he knows her from the national team. He walked over and gave her a little consolation,
mhm.
consoling, not consolation, consoling, I guess.
Yeah.
And also, goalkeeper coach for the current Rocky,
Mhm,
I think it was him, walked over and did the same thing. So
mhm.
it was just, again, a very respectful thing from the current
Yeah.
staff doing that as well.
Yeah. For sure. There's a whole lot of respect for um everybody that comes from this current staff for one, but two, um, especially for Trinity. Tough moment.
Yeah.
One other thing, I mean, we could talk about it, the red card. Alma Schultz, I don't know how she didn't come off worse than she did, but crazy play there from Lena Solano getting a straight red there. I want to say, okay, well, I take that back. There have been very few opponent red cards since I covered the NWSL. Like there's way more red cards in men's soccer than like in covering MLS games than there are in WSL. I test. I swear I don't see them very much. So
Especially straight reds.
especially straight reds. I think that is outside of like in a non-dog so situation. That's one of the first straight reds in the NWSL game that I've covered in person. And like I saw it and I said, "Oh my gosh, that might be a red." And I looked and the ref already had his hand in his back pocket,
Yep.
and I was like, "Yeah, he's gone. She's gone." And you know, uh, just tough play. Um, Good that so far it seems like Alma Schultz came out of that not worse for wear.
Yeah.
But
I mean, you get cleated to the neck and you just, you bounce back up a minute later and
mhm,
finish out the game. Uh, Kudos to her. I got a picture of her crashing into the post, and on
mhm.
one of the shots that went wide, she was covering the post and literally covered the post. So question though about that red card, and I've heard people kind of go back and forth on it, and I have my own opinion. I just want to see what yours is. Was it malicious? Was it a straight red because it was she deserved because of violent or because it was just reckless? You know what I mean?
So yeah, to me, this would fall under serious foul play, and I haven't seen like the actual reasoning yet of why it was a red card. I was trying to look and see if I could find something that gave like an official reasoning on it. But like because they'll at some point on the match report they'll usually have like from the referee's notebook they'll say exactly what it
Yeah.
was. Um, so here is um these are all um parts of the laws of the game, serious foul play, uh, of like what constitutes as it. Um, let's see. Here we go. If I could find, I thought I had it pulled up and apparently did not. Ah, um, so okay, this is bad. The FA, I'm not going to use that one because that's incorrect. Um, give me a sec. Here's why okay, I'll just straight up. I think it's serious foul play because of the fact that she does go for the ball. There's not, I don't think there is intent, but there serious foul play removes the intent
Right.
portion of it. That just means that your challenge was so dangerous, whether or not you got the ball, that you should not be in the game anymore if that's going to be the judgment that you're going to have in doing that. So it involves excessive force or brutality and against an opponent. So like this is kind of some of the examples that it has. It says lunging an opponent with excessive force while challenging for the ball, using excessive force or brutality when challenging for the ball, endangering the safety of an opponent with a tackle. I think that tackle meets all three of those standards. I
At least
understand
two
she
of the
does
three,
get the at least two of the three, and all you
the
got to
first and
do
the
is
third.
meet one. All you got to do
Right.
is meet one. And so to me, like I understand she goes in hard. She leaves her feet. She goes in with 2 feet, studs exposed. She does get the ball, but even then, they have legislated this across the game 100%. You are in control. You are responsible for what happens after you get the ball. Your
Right.
challenge can be deemed endangering the safety of an opponent when there is little care for what happens when you go through the ball in that moment. She gets to the ball a half second late. That collision was always going to be bad in the manner that she went to in with it. And so to me, that's why it easily meets the SFB. Talking to multiple spirit riders, because I texted a couple and I was like, look, do you need me to ask? Because I got to let him know ASAP if we want pool report questions.
Right.
And they said, and all of them said, nope, it looked as clear cut as you think
Yeah.
it was. And so, I understand why some people um, like to argue and like to have their conjecture and all that. But to me, I know you said it meets 1 and 3. Um, I still think using 2 feet with your studs force, or your studs exposed, counts as using excessive force or brutality when challenging for the ball. And so, to me, like that would be my interpretation that it hits all three of those marks. It's a straight red.
Well, I don't think a lot of people have argued whether it was straight red or not. I think it was just kind of like it was that was it in the reckless or the more violent and I just it was reckless. It was, and I know that's not the wording for the law at the moment, but that's kind of where it wasn't like,
Yeah.
oh, I went into studs up on this guy on purpose, right?
Yeah.
It was
So
reckless. It
the
was
use of serious foul play versus violent conduct. Violent
right.
conduct is just when there is no attempt to play the ball. I definitely think she had an attempt to play the ball. It just was a
I
very bad
I
and
think,
poorly judged play.
and sometimes you can make an attempt to play the ball when you're really trying to play the person. She was really trying to play the ball, and it was just a very bad tackle.
Yep.
That's that's all I was going for. All
Yep.
right, we we'll have a few more minutes unless we want to like have a whole nother segment. But one thing just wanted to throw out there too, Timwa's birthday. I love the fact that she got serenaded after. I love the fact that she celebrated, and that she went over and celebrated with Jericho, and she's just like she's being more outgoing, kind of.
Yeah, she blew out the birthday candles
Yep.
on Lowe's cake, which was just amazing. I think that guy who does like the team artwork and all that painted a picture of that celebration and then gave it to her. You can go check it out on her Instagram. She's kind of showed that off. It's pretty cool. So highly recommend that. But yeah, um, man, Tem was a whole lot of fun, right? And the stadium singing happy birthday to her after the goal, like serenading her, and then them doing it after the game. The players did it after the game. The whole stadium did it after the game, and it was quite something. So good for her. And I'm glad the a person that is as smiling and warm and welcoming as Temwa is celebrated in the manner that she is just a darn good thing.
Absolutely. All right. this weekend it's going to be a noon game against Gotham,
Mhm.
and it should be interesting. It's going to be really crucial for how the playoffs set up, and we'll talk about that more in a little bit. We'll be right back. Okay, segment two, the next game, Gotham at Kansas City, Saturday noon. Not sure why it was a
Mhm.
noon game in the first place. But it worked out for other plans I have that day. But
Yep.
high noon match showdown. Like it's like an Old West showdown. Meet you at high
Mhm.
noon.
Mhm.
Two pretty good teams. Gotham has one loss in the last seven, and that was at Orlando.
Yes.
Uh, Otherwise, it's been just working back win, 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 loss, win, win, draw in their last seven. It's been pretty good. What do you expect from this match, man?
Um, well, I think it's going to be a really interesting matchup. Uh, I think the Gotham are a pretty stingy defense. Um, but there's a good stat that I'll come back to later, as we get into this discussion. But I really do think that um, this is going to be a very, very interesting matchup. The last time these two teams played, it was on the road. Gotham did not have their full, um, you know, arsenal of players yet. There's a lot of players injured. Esther, remember, scored that goal on the corner kick. The current, for the most part, survived. They didn't get a ton of chances. They get the goal on a Temwa breakaway. Um, you know, I the It was so early on in the season too that like I don't think we've totally realized how good that current team was going to start becoming. I think you saw that they definitely could score goals, but it was just such an odd game. And these two teams have grown in so many different ways since then that I think it's going to be a really good match. I mean, there's a reason why that that this is with the spirit and the injury form that they are in and the current getting that win against Washington to peg them back closer. I really don't think Orlando is going to be catchable at this point. So now you're looking at if you want to jump into that two seed and have home field throughout the playoffs, this game is a must win because the current schedule after this game is I won't say it's smooth sailing, but it's much easier than it has been for the last 3, 4, 5 games really. Um, so this Louisville, Bay, San Diego, Chicago, um, they've had this like hell stretch against the best teams in the league, and they've right now they're coming out in a pretty good spot. So if they can get a win over Gotham here, it should get them back leapfrogged over Gotham in the standings, and kind of gets them back on that stretch of okay, well now they're chasing Orlando. If Orlando does somehow have a catastrophic slip up, it doesn't feel like they are going to in the regular season at this point. So. It's just one of those things that, you know, uh, this is a must-win match for the current, in terms of getting that home field advantage throughout the postseason. If not, you're looking potentially at a first-round matchup with the North Carolina Courage, maybe the Red Stars, with how they got a point back this week. It got a little bit closer to North Carolina. That's a dicier matchup, and you're putting yourself in a spot where you may only have one home game. So I think it's very um, imperative that the current win this game. It's going to be a really juicy matchup for a lot of different reasons.
Yeah, and just kind of gaming out the end of the season a little bit. Washington has two very tough games left after this weekend because
Hmm.
they go on the road at Orlando.
Hmm.
Well, first they go on the road at Angel City, then at Orlando, then home for Louisville and Chicago, and then away at the Courage. That's two. If I was going to be a betting person, I would say there's two losses right there at Pride and at Courage. But uh, I'm pretty sure they'll drop at least a couple points in there, so that's an opportunity for the current to leapfrog them. It's And like you said, the current have a pretty good end of season stretch here after this next match.
Hmm.
It's all winnable games. It's all games that they can be successful in, and hopefully just build Claire Hutton back into the mix, Bia getting more game time. And this is going to be like the one negative over the last couple games is Bia has been very good and showed what she can do, but I still don't feel like she's even 60% of what she was at the beginning of the season.
Yeah,
Uh, she doesn't have the it doesn't feel like she has the endurance, the speed of some of that is of what she had early in the season. And I think that's just going to come back to her with some game time and getting the
hmm,
game fitness. But it's not there. So these next games will be crucial for her.
for sure. Um, like I said, this Gotham defense is a very stingy defense, right? They've only conceded 16 goals this whole season. They're the only team in the teens still, outside of the Orlando Pride, who have only conceded 12. Um, they don't score a ton though. They've only scored 26. Here's the kicker though, and I'm not gonna take full credit for the stat. I'm gonna take credit for delivering you this stat, Thad. But I have was not the one who found it. I'll credit our good friend Christian Gumminger, a great listener of the pod and um, good friend. Uh, Here it is. Gotham has allowed 16 goals this season, but half of them have come in their four games against the Pride, Spirit, and Current. And in those four games, and against those four opponents, they have only picked up 1 point.
Interesting. So they have been really good against lower teams, but not so good against upper teams,
Yeah,
which
I will say
honestly,
for a while was the Current until they got to play those games at home.
yeah,
But at the same time, I think that's yeah, I mean you're looking at that tells you something.
yeah, that's interesting. Thanks for the stat. Appreciate that. I'll actually go. I've it's we recording this pod, and I wanted to do more research on the opponent before we got here, but that just didn't happen. So Um, I will actually be doing some more over the next couple days so I can ask intelligent questions to Blocko. But it's a winnable game, and
Hmm.
it's a game that they're going to have to just continue to build and build. That's I hate saying that. They're just going to continue to get, like I said, be a healthy, get Claire back into the mix, and just find how giving Vlaco those opportunities to play the different ways he wants to neutralize the opponent's offense and then break them down. After this, because it'll be some easier matches, it will not necessarily be as tough, but there's no easy game. There's never an easy game,
No,
almost never an easy game. Although the NWSL is becoming more of the haves and have-nots than it was in some years.
correct.
If you're Vlaco, who do you think you're going to be starting this weekend?
That's a great question. I think you're not touching the back line, and you're probably putting Haley Mace on Lynn Williams. And Lynn's going to probably line up on the left, so you're probably putting those two up against each other. Um,
And they know each other
Obviously,
well.
you know each other well. Obviously, you're starting. Um, Good Lord. Obviously, you're starting low. Um, the question in the midfield is where I'm at. Um, and I had this conversation with somebody earlier over the weekend of like who do you want to be on the field and when, is the question I have for Vlaco here. Because if you want to start the game with Bia, where does Dabinia go? Where does Vanessa DiBernardo go? Where does Cooper go? Where does, the Temba is going to be out left, that's for sure. But does Dabinia play off the right like he had on the opening match with Vanessa DiBernardo as the 10, especially with Hutton? Do you want Hutton in there right away? Is there um, for this game, I'd be surprised to see him just throw Hutton right back in as a starter, because I think that the way defensively this team's been, uh, I don't think it's not a product of Claire Hutton not playing. It's a product of this team playing very well right now.
Yeah.
And you put a rookie who just went on this crazy trip down to Colombia and is coming off a concussion. You put them into a match like this. This may not be the match to like get her minutes to get back from the start. Maybe you do so for 15 at the end if that's at the right game state. Um, but it's just one of those of like I'd be curious to see how he sees Claire Hutton in the mix for the rest of the season. And like she she's done so many good things, but
Yeah.
still has so much more to grow, that it's also one of those things of like if the team is playing the way it is right now, especially in the midfield, and things defensively are going the way they are, do you want to upset the apple cart? And that's a good question. That'll be
It,
a question.
it is, and I think that's going to tell us a lot about what Vlaco sees in Claire Jr., as they call her.
Mhm.
Uh, and it'll show us a lot what he thinks. If he plugs her back in immediately, she's the starter for the rest of the season, I would say. You know what I mean? She's
Yeah.
if he brings her in the last 15 or starts her against the next team, it's a completely different, not completely different, but it's a, like ease her back in. But she played so damn good when she was,
Mhm.
before she went off. So
Yeah. And the other thing too is like the way Michelle Cooper has been playing on the right hand side of the field, like it's very hard to take her off.
yeah,
And the games where she was injured there for a little bit, they had Ellie out there. They had to put Ellie out there to get the type of physical presence
yep,
that they were missing from Michelle Cooper in that spot. And that kind of that work ethic and the defensive work higher up the field. And I think that's just like it to me, that's a testament to where Michelle's games has gone. And like, you know, I think this sounds terrible because she just finally scored a goal for the team. But like I think Michelle is like the first name that comes off if you're thinking of like where's the team's best XI right now, and who should start over the weekend. If Bia got what, 30-ish minutes?
oh, I think she got a little bit longer in this last one, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I mean it's just one of those like, does Bia go from, does she go to 60? Does she go to 45? Where is she at? I think they probably want to take her a little bit more slow. So I wouldn't be surprised if she only gets
Yeah,
45.
it was
Um,
32 this last one. Yeah.
yeah. So I think that's just, do you start her? Do you bring her on for the second half? What do you do? So I think it's also something that benefits Vlaco now is that he can change things up and like Amoros isn't going to be able like the team that Juan Carlos Amoros is going to put out for the Gotham, barring injury, like everyone has a pretty darn good idea of who's going to be on the field and playing.
Yeah.
Um, that cannot be said for the current. And like there's a lot of question marks about who's going to play where, and it that can change the overall look and makeup of the game. And I think that's a big benefit to Vlaco at the moment.
It is. And at the beginning of the year, and I'll say almost every coach will say some version of this is you want two players in every position that are pushing each other to play in that position. And it's some of these have I think have kind of a surprise because I was not expecting Ellie Wheeler to be pushing as a winger. I'll be quite honest.
Yeah.
But she's pushed as a winger and she's pushed as an outside back. And it, so a lot of, high praise for her. But he does have like every spot essentially. I will say your back five goalie and your back four are pretty much a lock,
Yeah.
but that can change. I mean, you have players that can play in those spots also, and you do probably he probably will do a little bit of rotation down the stretch just to keep people fresh. And so not tire them out, but also give them a little bit of time.
Mhm.
But there's been some good players that we haven't seen very much of. So yeah, I don't know who I would exactly start, but I would definitely go with the same back five. I would
For
have
sure.
to get the judgment on how Claire's doing from travel and all that stuff. If she needs a little more rest before I would put her back in. So I think that's the bigger question because I think she'll fit
Mhm.
back in pretty. pretty easily and quickly. But
Yeah.
but then forward of that, man, that's where all the questions are.
Hmm.
And the good thing is there's a lot of answers.
Hmm.
What do you expect? You said you Gotham, you can look at that and go, yeah, this is probably the lineup. What lineup are you expecting from them?
Um, well, I think Ella Stevens has kind of been their top striker. She's in the game either at striker, she can play the wing, it works. Yeah, Esther can kind of go up and play as a true number nine when when they're, like a couple of weeks ago they played against the Rain. Lynn Williams did not start. She didn't play in the game, or maybe did play in the game, but just that definitely didn't start. Esther was playing as the striker, and Ella Stevens was playing as the left wing. Sheehan and Roosevelt playing in the middle of the park. Um, the back line for them is pretty straight up. Like and Katrin Berger is going to be playing goalkeeper, Jess Carter at right back, Sonnet and Tierna Davidson as center backs, and Jenna Neiswanger as the left back. Yasmin Ryan has been phenomenal for Gotham this year, one of their best players on the right wing. So yeah, I assume it's going to be some mix of that as long as Lynn is still healthy and good to go. That's a very good group. Crystal Dunn also in the mix. We haven't, I know she hasn't played a ton this year, but at the same time, they've just got so many different players that they can do a whole lot with. And then CC Kaiser is in the mix again, right? She signed there. There's an old friend
Yes.
alert. Definitely a good chance that she is back and potentially playing. But there's still so many good players that, even looking at their last game on the bench, Crystal Dunn, Mandy Freeman, McCall Zerboni,
Yeah.
Brunini is a good player. Kaiser, I mean, there's just a lot of good players that team has. Um, welcome to welcome to the Gotham and the way that they built that roster. So, um, a lot of star power coming into KC for this one. And it should be a very fun game, fun atmosphere, and a fun match.
It will be. And some kind of big watch party outside during the game.
Yep. With watch party for the party that's going on inside. It's interesting, but
Yeah, I haven't looked in the details too much, but I don't know what all's going on there. But I think isn't there like two different locations also, maybe?
I believe so.
And Lauren Holiday will be there for the Lauren Holiday
Yes.
uh the award for
Yes.
community activity. I was trying to think of the right all the exactly how they phrased it, but yes.
Yep.
So hopefully we'll get to see her and say hi.
Yes, she should be in the house.
All right, man. Any last thoughts?
I've got no more thoughts. My brain's dead now. But anyways, should be a whole lot of fun soccer in this city over the next few days. So enjoy it all.
Yep, we are out.